Hey, Alex.
Hey, how are you?
Thank you. Doing great. How are you today?
Grinding away, as per usual.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me. Just so everyone knows, Alex is the CEO and co-founder, right, of Tattle?
Yeah, co-founder, founder.
Co-founder,
Everyone there in the
founder.
early days gets the co-founder title, no doubt.
Yeah, I myself often wonder, do I say founder or co-founder? But I like to spread the
It's a collective experiment.
yeah,
It's pretty spirited in the early days. Everyone gets it.
everyone's chipping in.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's exciting to have you here because I was thinking a lot about it, and you're really one of the. I think you're really the. Like on one hand, I want to say you're the first integration we've had, but
We do go back like years. Yeah.
yeah, I know, which feels like it's great to have that history with someone because Up and Go still feels new, but once I realize like, oh, I've gotten to know these people over years, it's really a nice feeling.
Definitely. I think, oh man, when did we connect? Was it like, it's pre-2020?
Was it really?
I think so. And I
It,
remember you had like a ragtag team at the time, small and
y-
mighty, which is like now in vogue in a way, the smaller you can be. So yeah, it is like that. And I think, it takes so long to make meaningful progress in this space just because it's so hyper connected that you just have to be around for so long. And then you end up meeting some great people along the way, like we did. And yeah, I think now, even after what, maybe like 5+ years since the integration, we're like moving on to phase two of the integration. So things just take time.
they really do. I've noticed that when I hear of a company that's like a new company, I've traced back like when they started, and it seems to always be like 7 years. So that's the number I notice. Like when like a new company is 7 years, because that's how long it takes to get the word out and actually start have people start seeing what it's all about.
Completely. And I think you probably worked through like, I don't know if you've seen there's like maybe a famous Y Combinator chart about like the different phases of like euphoria and then like the trough of sorrow and then climbing out of it when you like hit scale and predictability. So it truly takes forever to do the cycles because even like testing variables or new
Mm.
features or a new customer cohort, like whatever it is, I mean, you can have great success out the gates, but if it's not sustainable within like a year or two, like you don't know that until you mess up for a longer period of time or your thesis is proven wrong. It literally takes like years to know. So yeah, 7 years. It's like the 7 year itch perhaps in startups, and you're like, did we make it yet? Are we coming or going? So yeah, there is that weird inflection like that for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's start at the beginning. I'd like to know a little bit more about what led you up to Tattle. What was Alex before Tattle, and how did you get here?
I don't know. I don't remember my life before Tattle. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
I've been doing Tattle for 13 years now, which is wild to think about. I'm almost doubly past the 7 year itch in a way. Tattle's, I think, like two, it's maybe a confluence of two stories. My parents owned and operated a restaurant back in the early 1980s, a restaurant called the Village Way in Long Island, New York. My dad was a CPA at the time. My mom was a substitute teacher. They collectively didn't know like a ton about restaurants. My mom had waited tables in the past, but they decided to pull money together from friends and family, open up a continental restaurant in Port Jeff in Long Island, call it the Village Way, in hopes to do it as the villagers wanted them to do it. And I think they realized super fast they had no idea what in the world they were doing. They didn't know how to hire people, train them, didn't know what food to buy, didn't know about labor, like nothing really that you'd need to know out the gates. And I think one night they went to a Denny's, and Denny's in 1982 rolled out the paper customer comment card a couple years before my parents opened their restaurant, and they thought it was the most inventive thing that they had ever seen, a paper and a pen. And the thesis for them was that, oh wow, if we have no idea what we're doing, our guests probably do, so we should ask them. And then my dad, who's way more quantitative, numbers oriented, was like, oh yeah, this is my thing. So I'm going to print out thousands of paper comment cards, ask guests all the questions about the things that we don't know, like accuracy or speed or hospitality or cleanliness or food quality or menu knowledge or attentiveness or whatever it was. Have the comment cards featured in the check booklet at the end of the meal. The guests would fill it out. They would take it to my dad in the back office. That's where he hung out, was not more of a front of the house kind of guy. And he would take all the piece of paper in their disparate form and put them into an Excel spreadsheet, and then use that to identify the hot and cold areas of the business, whether that was, you know, slow speed of service during the lunch rush, or a certain food or menu item that was underperforming, or lack of menu knowledge during the dinner period to be able to upsell higher priced items to guests. So that was what my dad did. And then my mom would take the entire playbook and she would deploy it to the team, create better operational systems between front and back of house, train the team. I think at one point in time, if the team didn't score above a 90% on her menu knowledge test, she would take the table and wait the table. And that would be it for you for the night as a waiter, waitress. So they've used feedback forever. And I think my story, for the most part, it's definitely winding. But I, early days, worked at a company called Yext when was it? I went to law school, dropped out of law school within about 3 weeks, was not meant for me, and got a job at sportsmemorabilia.com in Miami, and was blown away by e-commerce. I had no idea what e-commerce was in 2010, 2011, but I worked at this company where it was a few guys that would go to like a LeBron James basketball signing, get it signed by LeBron, the basketball, and then put it up on the website for like $400. The whole thing blew my mind, the internet. Mm-hmm. So shortly after I moved back to New York from Miami, which is very different now than 10 plus years ago, and we were selling a time-saving product for the most part, more of like an operational efficiency product to restaurants and other SMBs, and I was blown away by the velocity by which we can bring on SMBs, mom and pop shops, to solve their problem. So then I began knocking on restaurant doors in Manhattan for about a year and a half. I think I knocked on about 2,600 restaurant doors, caught walking pneumonia twice, stress fractures of the feet, just pounding pavement, asking them what do they like, what do they not like. They did not like Yelp at the time. They wanted to hear more directly and privately from their guests, and they wanted to build a better guest experience. So those were the three tenets that I collected over a long period of time. And every time I kept going back in, I kept honing my pitch and then coming in with a brochure about the product. And then if they liked it, I'm like, oh, good. I'll hire a team overseas to build out the product in a way that I could sell and test assumptions. So it was so iterative all the time. And I think, the best thing that I did over the course of, 5 years testing a thesis, that's how long it took, was just saving as much money as humanly possible. I lived in a converted brothel with like 31 different people I would recruit from Craigslist. And it was an 8x8 room with no windows. And I lived in there with like 5 other people in rotation for like 4 years until we eventually iterated to a place whereby we were solving a real problem in the market, which is, identifying issue inside of a given restaurant and then telling them exactly what to do and how to fix it. So it's been a super long 13-year wild journey. And I think it gets more rewarding by the day, just realizing that all the work is paying off. It's gratifying to be in a space with great people, great customers, a great team. And I don't remember life before this. That's how much it's taken hold.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, first of all, your parents seem like incredibly sophisticated, especially for 1982.
They were like running Moneyball operations, and in like, their continental restaurant spot. They're such great yin and yang. I would call them both two type A personalities, no doubt, with completely different disciplines. Dad, far more quantitative measured, mom, more of the operator, and was like the face in many ways of the restaurant. And I think the byproduct of running a restaurant for 18 years that had a ton of heart, did it as their guests wanted them to do it, and then did right by the staff. I think there were over 25 couples that ended up getting married from working there, just because it was such a great environment for everyone. And it had a lot of heart. So they're super unique with a quantitative and skillful ops side. But I learn a lot from them still.
Sounds like my business school. I think 25 of my business school friends all got married to each other.
Yeah. I guess put people in like a high stress environment, keep them focused on a goal perhaps. Yeah. But
sometimes you don't realize when you're going through it, like how much of a unique point in time certain life experiences are. Like when you're working in that restaurant, probably nobody went in there thinking that it was going to be such a big part of their life. they just wanted a job, and then maybe it was stressful. And especially when like your environment is stressful, I think that's when you
No
form
doubt.
like stronger bonds with the people around you.
Yeah, definitely. I think so many people that met there were in that like in between stage period of their life. Maybe they were like, just graduated from college and got a job at the restaurant and sort of navigating the next phase and what they do and what they get into, or staying and working in the restaurant space and rising up or opening up their own, which many also did as well. So yeah, it's probably like there's probably a formula for it, which is crazy to think about. But like probably high octane stress, a sense of togetherness and us against the world. I mean, startups are similar in that way too. But yeah, it's like a pressure cooker for some people, which could be good or bad.
I like how your mind goes straight to formula.
It's sick. It's a sickness. I was not like this before Tattle, I swear. But yeah, I feel like, I don't know if you feel this way, like everything you do, it's like, how do I repeat it again? I don't know.
I think about that a lot. I mean, I definitely got that from my college experience where there was this notion of modeling everything with a formula. And sometimes that's what I think about when I'm falling asleep at night. And then I think I could be some like brilliant academic and write a book about it, but then I just fall asleep.
Yeah. Yeah, that will put you to sleep, no doubt. But then, yeah, it's funny. It's like, I guess if you were to write the thesis on whatever you did and how you did it, like, I don't know, the ground moves underneath your feet within like 90 days. And then what you did is outdated, or the problem is not as audacious as it needed to be. Or it is, I don't know if you find that, just even in this environment. It's like, oh, the things that we thought to be true a month ago, 2 months, 3 months are no longer true. And now we're iterating all over again with a new formula for the same outcome or something like that.
Well, I would say in terms of, let's say, product or feature development, we try to be reactive because we hear what people ask for. And then there have been situations where we said, okay, enough people are asking for something, so we'll build it. And then it just takes, something that you thought would take 3 months, takes 2 years. And then at 2 years, like the market's different and
Completely.
nobody really cares. And you're trying to explain to your investors like why you did this for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if you don't put up guardrails quickly and like govern your thought process a lot, yeah, it can get that way too. Happened to me many a times.
I
No
bet.
doubt. Yeah.
So after 18 years, was your father doing that analysis up until the last day?
Yeah, it was like one of the core KPIs of the business that they would report on. I think it got even more intricate when you start asking about certain wait staff and how they performed along with certain menu items. And then once you have all the data in Excel, you can draw correlations between these two things. And then once you layer on financial data on top of it, you can start to predict what might happen to the next month. And I think the sad part about all this is that for a one location restaurant brand, you can do like as much preparation as humanly possible. But if it rains on a July weekend, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you thought might happen. So I definitely riding the highs and lows of their opera. You just feel it so, so invasively in your life just because it's naturally hectic and unpredictable. But they tried to ground themselves. And I think feedback data was how they tried to do it.
Well, one thing I've learned is that there's no certainty in the world and everything is a probability. So
Yes, a formula. There we go. I like
the
it.
chance of a rainy day is really some probability that you can work
Right.
into some master
It's going to
formula.
happen. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, my co-founder and I have this debate all the time. He's like, this will never happen, or that won't happen, or this is rare. And I say, well, look, with the volume of payments you have or the volume of interactions you have, something that's a fraction of a percent means it'll happen 50 times on a Saturday.
Right.
So
you can
you've got
predict
to.
the unpredictable, maybe, in some ways.
So I wasn't quite following. Did you start Tattle in Miami or right when you got back to New York?
Yeah, right when I got back to New York, I had worked, at Yext, and it was another world. When you go to college, they don't talk about like tech or e-commerce or any of the things that were bubbling at the time in like 2010.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
when I went to Yext, we were selling power listings at the time, which is the listings that we know today, which is in one way we can have uniform listings across 200 plus partner directory sites online by, one central hub in a dashboard that we provide. So it's just saving them time with the outcome of better visibility, better SEO, more people coming to the restaurant, but it saved them time because they were doing this anyway. So Yeah, and seeing what did we have? 30 people at the company at the time. They were making 120 phone calls a day. They were taking, you know, or bringing on new customers in 15 different verticals so easily just by a conversation over the phone. It was, I think I was enamored with the fact that this could even exist and that if I just use my cell phone or if I walk around Manhattan, I could find a problem and I can create a scalable system that would sell more of my product into more businesses across the US or the world. So that's mostly how it got kicked off, but I wouldn't have learned about any of it unless I worked at sports memorabilia in Miami because that was like, I mean, the margins on getting LeBron James to sign a basketball for like $150 entry pass into his signing and then putting it
Yeah.
online, like that basketball and 20 others that you sign for like 400 plus. It was wild just to see it happen live.
That reminds me of the Taylor Swift tickets. Like I had a friend that, got
Yeah.
four,
It's
and
intrinsic. It's intrinsic. Yes.
it's crazy though because, they're trying to give that out to the people, but then there's always going to be some kind of enterprising person in the middle trying to just flip it over for a profit. And I don't know if there's anything you can do to stop that, but it's just part of how
Completely.
the
I think it's an
society works.
intrinsic. It's like, well, how many times will my daughter turn 15 years old? And then it's like, we got to get these tickets. And then they start creeping up. And then, yeah, it's the same. It was the same economy with memorabilia. It's like, well, I mean, how many times is LeBron James going to sign his jersey after he scores 10,000 points? Like, this is precious to me. And I'm from Cleveland and he's my guy and I got to do it. So it's like, all right, list it for $1,200. Like, do it. And yeah, it's all, I guess people derive their own meaning.
Well, going back to something you said a little bit earlier, when you were talking about how many phone calls and how many sales you would get from that at Yext, it sounds to me like, is that one of the biggest takeaways you had from that experience was how to run that sales playbook?
Yes, initially for phone calls,
Yeah.
no doubt. And it was so methodical. It was make a certain amount of phone calls a day, speak to a certain number of ICPs a day, close a certain amount of deals every day. And then you do that over the course of the month and the entire thing becomes really predictable. So for me, I went to market with Tattle with the in-person playbook to figure out the pitch when we brought it inside for phone calls. And then when we did phone calls, it was wildly harder for me to figure out a way to call all these restaurants and get the ICP. And I think for 1 month period, I recorded every single call that we made and the ratio by which we would actually get a ICP on the call. And like, it turned out like 90% of our calls should only be made from like, Tuesday or Wednesday night from like 5 to 8 p.m. because that's when the ICP is actually in. So our hook wasn't strong enough and phone calls, we were not getting enough people. So we ended up going to emails. So I don't know if you remember the days pre-COVID when people would actually answer your emails and that was so predictable, so measurable. It was, I mean, those were like the days. It would be sending 33 emails to book one meeting with your ICP. I think now it takes like 500 or maybe even more to book one of those meetings. So, and then, yeah, that's when the ground moves under your feet and the formula that you had created to drive your one outcome completely evaporates. And then you have to figure out all over again, how do I talk to my ICPs?
Why was it important to do the in-person testing before you would create your call-based scripts?
Yeah, I wanted to see their visceral reaction to what I was doing and how I was demoing it. I wanted to see what would light them up, the problems that they could solve. I think it becomes like a one-dimensional data point in a little bit when you're only making phone calls and you can't see their face because they're so distracted. Like you call them and, if the cook couldn't make it that night for a mom and pop shop, they're like hopping in the kitchen and flipping burgers. So it was just tough to get them on the phone, tough to get them to pay attention. So you just walk in, hopefully the owner's in, and they don't shoo you out. And then sometimes they'll feed you. Sometimes they love to hear what you're doing. Other times they definitely do not. But without being in person, I don't know if I would have had the right hook for the phone calls, the right hook for the emails. And then it just got a lot easier.
So you're targeting, in order to find, when you say ICP, that would be, for example, the owner of like a single unit restaurant?
Yes, that would exactly. Anyone who wasn't the owner, they wouldn't care about something like their public reputation or improving operations. It's more of like an ownership oriented perspective. Even the GM was like, give me Groupon, Alex. I don't want feedback. Like, buy my customers for me. So it was hard to compete in that market. Or, Belly Loyalty. I don't know if you know these guys, but they gave every restaurant an iPad. And that was how they formed their loyalty. You'd come in with your phone, you'd like check it or like, check in to get points. So I was selling like, we're the anti-Yelp and we're going to prevent bad reviews from getting on, to public places. And, even that didn't work in many ways. So it was going through so many iterations of the pitch until you nail it with the right person. But then when you nail it, something else changes. So you're always kind of on your toes.
Yeah, you tend to figure out the hot 2 or 3 points that people are really reacting to.
Yeah.
Like I know you say reviews now. Now what everyone's talking about are Google reviews, and restaurants are very eager to have more Google reviews and higher Google reviews. And, that's something where I think both of our companies have a little bit of an edge to improve those.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's doing it the right way too. I think for the most part, what is more enduring is creating really sound operational processes so that guests come in at higher volume, have an amazing experience, and then are more evangelistic on Google. So even if you redirect or customers opt in at the end of the survey to go to Google and rate the brand or what have you, if you don't fix operations, more guests will just come in to have a negative experience. So there's definitely a line, no doubt, but we hear it a ton because restaurants need foot traffic, and improving Google reviews is the fastest path to do it in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, just to talk about Up and Go for a minute, we have a feature where right after you pay, we can pop you over to leave a review. And we also collect internal reviews. And one of the things that I've noticed is that the review average on Up and Go is substantially higher than Yelp, and it's higher than Google, and it's higher than OpenTable. I actually made a chart. I took something like 30 of our restaurants and I measured them, and Yelp was actually at the bottom. I think it's where people go to complain.
Yeah.
And then Google was higher. And then the one that was closest to us was actually OpenTable. I'm going to get you that chart. The one that was closest to us was OpenTable. And I think what OpenTable and us have in common is also that we're verified guests.
Yeah, more sophisticated.
Yeah, where anyone could have gone. So when you put it right in front of people, you're more likely to catch people that had a good experience, love paying by phone. You've made it more easy for them to leave a review. And really that the barrier to go and leave a review is lower. So I think most of the time, people who are going to do that are people who want to complain. So, you've got part of it is making it easy for people to leave a review, being, in the right place at the right time. And then, of course, making sure they have that good experience. So, they can leave a good review.
Yeah, completely. That's really cool that you did that. I would imagine even for like Uber Eats and DoorDash, they're at the very top. Their reviews are so elevated. It could be 4.7 to a 4.9 for so many of these brands with like an incredible rating, which is the exact opposite of what we see internally for third party, because mostly it's like 30% lower than a dine-in experience, the satisfaction there. But to the next piece, that makes a ton of sense for OpenTable and for your guests too. They're more sophisticated, verified, maybe a bit more with it, just from a savviness perspective, and are more optimistic, when they do it. But could be a reflection of the merchants, or the restaurants on OpenTable and that work with you. They're buttoned up as well, and they bring great operational experience for the guests too. But yeah, we have seen something similar, and I guess it sounds like Yelp's on the bottom of the totem pole for the most part.
I'm talking about the average rating. I'll take the restaurant that's like uses Up and Go, and I'll look at their Yelp rating, Google rating, Up and Go, and OpenTable. I did not think to look at their DoorDash or Uber Eats rating for some reason.
So elevated. It's really, really high.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know. I wonder. I mean, because for first party pickup and delivery, it's about 30% lower on average. I think the incident rate is typically about closer to a third to 40% of guests have an incident with speed or accuracy, mostly like accuracy and food quality and speed.
That's with pickup.
And delivery too. Delivery is actually a bit worse than pickup.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine.
Yeah. But for us, for a dine-in experience, that might be an incident rate of only like 3 to 8%, depending on the brand. So the experience becomes so much harder off premise, just because there's less you can really control outside of making the food great, making it accurate. And if you package it up and ship it out and it's wrong, it's game over. That's all you get to see. But yeah, it's true. The benchmarkings are interesting. And on the third party front, I don't know. I need to know more about why it's a stark contrast for first party delivery.
So when you look at the actual Tattle responses,
Yeah.
so not the scores that you'd see on, let's say, DoorDash or Uber Eats, but for a given restaurant, the same restaurant, you get all this guest feedback. Some of it is takeout, and some of it is delivery, and so you're saying that the higher score is for takeout, like that basically fares better.
That phenomenon is actually interesting with the farther away that you are from being inside the four walls of a restaurant, the worse the experience actually becomes. So if you're, ordering for dine-in and maybe you check in with your loyalty app or order through a kiosk, or maybe there's an integration with the point of sale and, you get to send the guests a survey, they'll rate the experience. I mean, typically it's like a 4.7 and up for dine-in. But then when you move to, let's call it drive-through, maybe it's like a 4.5 and the incident rate goes up to like 10 to 15%. For curbside or takeout, I mean, you'll end up seeing like 30% of incidents. And then for delivery, like 40 to 50% of guests could be having an incident on delivery just because it's so much harder. And for the brands, especially there's like a 3-hour window during the day when transactions rise by like 2 to 3x from baseline. So the confluence of more dine-in, more takeout, more delivery, more drive-through all at once, it has the potential to like really hurt the team from delivering a great experience, which is why, labor deployment becomes more important. But yeah, they're definitely completely different businesses in a way. It's like, I think one of the better ways to look at it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, as I know from the days when I used to sell on eBay, it became such a big pain to like package things. And
Yeah.
so like
It's a package of burger that's like greasy and
now I'll just give something away or throw it in the corner because I don't even want to package something. And so I
Yeah.
think about restaurants and yeah, just like all that packaging, it's got to cost money and the process of putting it in there. And I know some food doesn't
it's more
handle
expensive.
that well.
It's a value perception. The stakes are higher, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit tougher.
Yeah, I was really lucky because the first restaurant we were ever in, Starlight, I got to spend so much time with this restaurateur. His name was Matt Hoyt. And I remember he was such a holdout during COVID when delivery started going crazy. He's like, look, we have all these things and they don't taste good after 5 minutes when they come out of the kitchen.
Fries are brutal for off premise. Yeah, it's
Fries
so
and
but a fan favorite.
He did that. He had a couple of really cool things there. Like there were these chickpea battered greens, and he had these like tempura fried mushrooms, like such good stuff. And I guess it didn't travel well, which was a real bummer.
It's a shame because in store, those are like the biggest hits.
Yeah.
And then off premise, it's like a completely different business, a different experience. You have to change up so much. A lot of muscle memory on the team to remember. I think we were working with a sandwich chain at one point, and there was like a handful of locations that were having delivery issues on the account of soggy bread. And it's like, why are these locations experiencing more soggy bread? And I guess apparently, within the plastic bag of the sandwich, this location, for whatever reason, would break SOP and protocol and tie the plastic bag. And then it would create like condensation and sogginess by the time they open it up. Things that you don't need to think about for dining. It's easy. The guest is there. They can help over the experience. If there's a mess up, you can rectify it easily. It's more expensive. Stakes are higher, especially with third party. It's really tough.
Do you remember that McDonald's burger they had probably like 20 years ago where it was like kept the hot side hot and the cold side cold? And then you would snack it together?
No.
Oh, you need to go to YouTube and find that video. That was like such a cool product. And
Wait, explain that again?
Yeah, so you'd get like, I don't know what it was, a Big Mac or something, or maybe it had its own name. And it was this styrofoam container that was like instead of a box, it was horizontal. And on one side, you had the bun with all the cold stuff, like the cheese, the lettuce, the tomato. Yeah. No, sorry, the cheese is hot. The lettuce, tomato, the onion, And on the other side, you had the hot stuff. So you had like the patty and let's say the melted cheese.
Yeah.
And you would get it and they would each be in their own side. And then you would just...
It's actually smart.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah.
And it was like, a lot of styrofoam back in the styrofoam days. And so...
That is amazing. I've never heard of that. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. Those things, if they're like, in many cases, like the tomato juice can make the bread super soggy. I think we've had issues with so many of our brands with caramelized onions, like creating like a soup effect. If they're
Oh
added
yeah.
onto the burger like too much, and then you open the whole thing, it's like the whole thing is juicy. It's like sitting in a soup. That's really smart. I don't think any of our partners right now are doing anything like that, but that probably solved the soggy bun issue, no doubt, because that tomato could easily leak. Easy.
Yeah, you could just like reconstruct the whole thing.
Yeah, I love that.
So, yeah, well, I mean, restaurants get all these problems, and are they just committed generally to fixing them, or do they ever throw in the towel and say, I guess they can't, right? Because delivery has become such a big part of restaurants' business
Yeah,
nowadays.
big time. I think more and more orders every year, probably as you know, are becoming more
Hmm.
digital, and I think convenience is paramount in so many ways. So delivery, takeout are taking more of the share. But yeah, I think, partners pick us to identify their issues and then to help them solve it. And I think the biggest problem that we're solving right now is the fact that you can have cold fries or a soggy burger, but what caused it? And then what SOP should the team be adhering to fix it before more
Hmm.
guests experience the same issue? So a lot of what we've brought to market is the AI coach, which is effectively just scaling all the documented intelligence of the brand to every single general manager so that the AI coach can identify the issues and then assign action items on the basis of the brand's SOPs. So in that sense, you remove excess time from the general manager who needs to be servicing guests and working with the team from having to be a data analyst to analyze all the data. Like so much feedback is rolling in, to analyze all of it, to connect the dots on the frequency of this issue, to look through a manual and be like, oh wow, on page 871 I'm supposed to put the colds in the cold styrofoam and the hots in the hot styrofoam. And there's not enough time, and it's so intense, during the rush where like 60% of incidents even happen anyway. So yeah, that's I think the main thing we're doing right now from that lens. And it's tough just because teams are so busy, and scaling something that's very new, even if it's like a co-pilot to them or a source of new labor for them, it's adoption is paramount on getting them to do it and finding a way culturally to make it happen, which is why we've been naming our AI coaches. Probably the best name so far is Hooters has like a great name. Albert Einstein is
Oh,
there.
every brand gets its own name.
Yeah, because it's
Oh,
not
that's good.
really our generalized AI. It's trained off of their intelligence. So we
Yeah.
shouldn't really have anything to do with it. We're just the mechanism by which they can scale
How do you get Albert Einstein from Hooters?
it. You get it by uploading thousands of documentation, into the knowledge base of Albert. And then Albert, within 10 minutes, processes all the new information, and he's trained to identify issue at each of the stores, whether it's acute or thematic, and then pair that issue with, the procedure in the SOPs, and then cite its sources on where it came from. So from what we hear from all of our great partners who use the AI coach, this would take months to do at the location level, the group level, the enterprise level. It's why many brands go to like an ops summit and being like, we're clean, fast, and friendly. When in reality, it's like, no, we are clean at these stores, and these stores we need to be fast, and these we have a soggy bun problem. So at scale, you can be more hyper focused on what are our issues by location, and then Albert Einstein can pay a visit, and coach up the team.
So who's reading these? I mean, is the GM reading it? Is the like if it's a chain, is like the VP of Ops reading it? Like what are the titles of these people who are reading the synopsis from Albert Einstein?
Yeah, I think one of the harder parts about building an operationally oriented product focused on improvement
Mhm.
is like who wants to go on a diet? Like who wants to go to the gym? It's really hard to get people to buy into something that they know is good for them. So
Yeah.
you really have to curate all the data, the dashboard, the notifications, Albert, to each individual persona that works within the hierarchy of a given operational, chain restaurant. So, or within the operations of a chain restaurant. So for the general manager, they're so slammed. The thing that we can do the best for them is take the onus off of them for identifying issue, tell them what the issues are, and then have Albert deliver them the number one objective for their location, a goal to hit, and then all the action items for them to check off. For the area manager who oversees many GMs, they need to know, are my locations pacing to their main objective? And did they check off the action items assigned to them? And then what should I be doing to intervene? And then for the high ups, they need to know, how are all my groups doing? And are we moving closer to our goal for increased guest satisfaction? Because we know that at a very strong correlation, when satisfaction goes up, period over period comp growth goes up with it at like a 0.8 correlation. So we are the leading indicator for many of our brands. And the hardest part is like cracking that nut. How do we make sure that everyone gets the data that they can actually action and nothing more, which is the tough science and art tug of war.
I think what you just said is like a really powerful insight, that that correlation where making people happier has such a huge impact on if people are coming back and spending money. Like just that, the rating to revenue component is huge, what you're saying.
Completely. That has a far more profound effect in an enduring way than increased Google reviews in time. Most because the Google reviews will bring in guests, no doubt, like meaningfully. I think there's 20 to 30% lift on foot traffic. But the reality is that only 80% of restaurant guests even come back in a second time. So you can't be wasteful when you acquire customers. It'll destroy return on ad spend. So the idea is to build the conditions for guests that would make them want to come back in for their second visit, their third visit, and then the economics of the business improve dramatically. So I think everything starts there. And then it's easier to do marketing, easier to acquire guests, easier to run LTOs, and bring in some new people with a cool, delicious new item. So we try to make the foundation sturdy enough to build more on, and maybe get more risky in how money is deployed from the marketing team.
Well, I think that's another big insight, is that the feedback that's on Google, somewhere public like that, is really completely different than your internal feedback. And in some sense, like one of them is obviously much more visible.
Yeah, as you know, you've rated them. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. But the internal one, it sounds like you're saying that actually there's more you can do with that data to improve your business, your restaurant, than from, let's say, the public reviews, right?
Definitely. I mean, I think to your point, you'd ask what do they look at? The general manager to the VP of ops to the area manager. Yeah. The hardest part is taking unstructured free write data and just giving it to someone and tasking them to be the data analyst, which is not their job. They don't have a PhD. I don't have a PhD. I would hate it if it was my job. So I think being able to intake data in a structured way through a survey, it automatically does the analysis for the brand. And then we compare it with an AI coach. Now it's telling them what to do so they don't have to figure it out. So I think it's, I think people rag sometimes on like a longer survey, but surveys can be 4 to 5 questions about the key operational areas, the same way that my parents did in the 80s. And that's all you really need to figure out the levers that you would push and pull to improve, to drive satisfaction higher, to drive comp growth higher. So it's classically formulaic in many ways. And the toughest part is like, well, what do we do?
Yeah, I definitely feel that way about, like, in a sense, Up and Go is, I always like to say we're in the right place at the right time. So we can collect all this data, but, our aim is to share it with people that can then, like Tattle, or in our case, we share the user ID, the email of people. Yeah. And then you can follow it up, because there's so much complexity in the platform that you build, and it's a really specialized skill. So that whole division of collecting versus analyzing, I think there's a really big wall between those two things.
Yes, I completely agree. You have a wealth of transactional data on every guest. You know who they are, how much they spend, how often they come. I bet we know the sentimentalities of that guest. What did they order and how they feel about it? Are they inclined to come back in again? What was their main issue? So the combination of those two things to build out like a core customer profile is really profound if you can figure out a way to leverage all of it. So it's cool that, and obviously thank you, you share the data with us. We survey the guests, we collect the data. We're both servicing the customer in some manner. If there's any way for us to pass the data back to you, for you to leverage, that would be like the next phase, I think, of how all the data can pass to all the partners in a way that, creates a better outcome for the rest, whether it's like the marketing team doing more hyper-personalized marketing campaigns, or for us, your data helps us understand which menu items that they should sunset, or keep, or only release seasonally, or things like that. So it's I think because of you and Up and Go, we're able to collect menu item data, which serves the marketing team, which is a new persona, for us that we're aiming to please from like an operational lens. So it's great when the wealth is shared in that way.
Yeah, well, when we first started Up and Go, I was really, and I still am against friction. So I took every field out that I could. I sort of embarrassingly didn't even get postal code when we first started getting credit cards. But obviously now we do it for AVS and
Yeah.
reduced chargebacks and all that and lower processing rates. So I definitely wasn't getting email. But now, with Apple Pay and Google Pay, I don't know, a lot of people don't know this. If you're doing the in-app instead of the tap, you actually get the validated email address without even really having to ask the guest. I mean, they acknowledge it, but it kind of goes by fast. And then even if people are paying by credit card, we have them enter it. So, our goal now, with just a couple client exceptions, is to get everyone's email address. Yeah. So like when we first did our integration, we were only sending Tattle email addresses if people got like an email receipt.
Right.
And on top of that, only if they opted in to receive communications, which was probably an oversight because I think you can survey them without that. Yeah. And so we recently made that change where we're giving you all the emails. And I know we launched that at a mutual client. And I'm hoping you've got just like a ton more data.
Yeah, I think that's in the process of getting deployed right now.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that would be an amazing use case when we figure that out. And I know we have a lot more customers that could use some in-store payment. So that'd be a good case study to push, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, I want to tell people use Tattle and
yeah, and I want to say use you so that we can, I know.
Yeah.
Like to get on that.
I definitely like to stay in our lane and focus on what we're good at because it's so easy. Like I see it in the opposite direction. I can't tell you how many companies I've seen that saw like what we're doing. And I've been to I was at a restaurant the other day. I scanned to pay and our we made this screen when you want to split the check. It gives you 3 ways to split: by item, by dollar amount, or by fraction. They literally copied it. Not only that, but there was like a little phrase that one of our clients had us put, make sure everyone picks the same way to split or something like that. And they had the same phrase in there. So we're copied. But the point is
huge compliment, by the way. Congrats.
Thank you. My whole life I hate it when people copy me in, but that's what people always say.
Yes, you should feel flattered.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, then these people sunset their products too, because people look at the QR code and they think like, that's easy, right? What is it? It's a screen and you check out. But the complexity of interacting with the POS, especially if you're splitting the check and the payment gateway, is such an incredibly complex thing that like once you peel your onion down, you don't want to continue and you realize, okay, whatever my other line of business was, that's where I need to focus. And I've seen, I could count 5 companies where I've seen they came out, tried to copy us, and then they put it away because, you have to, know what you're good at. And frankly, I try to do the same thing because there's so much temptation. Like, why don't I do all this stuff? But, I know so long as there's 10 more things that we could do with payments, I don't want to get involved in building other products. I rather collaborate.
What's going to take, let's say someone adopts it. It's like, oh my God, what's it going to take to market this, to then support it, then to keep iterating? It does become, it could be in excess at times. And if it's so yeah, I think being disciplined is probably like as much as you can be. And like, what's the most redeeming thing about the platform that no one would leave us for, even if they want something else? But it's tough to do that when, customers are like, can you do this? Can you do that? What if you did this? And then you're like, well, maybe we could do that. Yeah, let's do it. And then you're like, oh God, I got to dial this back. This would be like a 2 to 3 year journey all over again. And then, so honestly, the pain of actually having it not work out is helpful, I bet.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're a little bit like me. Sometimes when I hate to say no, when someone asks me for something and it's like, well, we could do this. And I found myself sometimes in places where I promised the world to someone to get their business. And then they came back and said, we're going to go use, some company that is already doing something like that. And I'm actually really happy because they prevented me from being my own worst enemy and just creating, like way too much work for what it would have paid. So.
Yeah, completely. It's tough to operate in the service industry and not want to service your customers with whatever they ask for. It's like, it feels like the antithesis of what we're doing here and what they do.
Yeah, you really want to say yes to people. That's what
Tough.
yeah.
Yeah. But on the next 20 to $30 million raise, like, that gets easier. You can say yes to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of raising money, I know you went the VC route, right? You have
Yes.
VC investment in your company.
Yeah. Yes. We first brought on venture money in 2019 from Contour Ventures. And I mean, it took me like 4 years to do it. It's just, it sounds like you've been super lean and so cash efficient, which is like an incredible nod to you. It's so hard to do, especially in this space too, when you want to do so many things for customers. But yeah, I think, the moment we broke through mid-market and we just, we had like 8 people at the company. We're like, wow, we can't support these customers and simultaneously grow. And at that point, the larger checks typically come from venture. So we took on venture, and it could be super helpful. And then sometimes could be a drawback just depending on constraints and what you need to do to keep growing and then what you sacrifice because of it. But yeah, we went that route and we're better off for it, which is good. But I very impressed with any company. And it sounds like, you didn't go that route who doesn't need venture. It's like a nod to the operators at the company that don't need it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you raise did you have rounds after the 2019?
Yeah, we did another round in 2022 with the lead was the same venture group. I think the one unique thing about Tattle is that we have like 85 different angel investors on the cap table that have put in money over the course of the last 13 years, and they've been incredible. I truly think, I feel like I make a very concentrated point to ensure that they're so up to date on the business, what we're going through. I think it's rare that angels in many cases see any update in the business besides like a few paragraphs, maybe on like a yearly basis, after the seed round. So if not for them, I think Tattle would be in a much darker place than we are now. So a bit of a combo, but I think the vast majority of money has come from, amazing angels who have rescued us, a handful of times over the years.
Yeah, the term angel, it really means angel.
Yeah, no, they're like watching over us in some ways. That's how it feels. For your process, how did you do it? Was it like bootstrapped until you raised outside funding, or did you never need to raise outside funding?
Well, so it was bootstrapped initially because my co-founder, Scott, he's a software engineer and, I was the product guy, and we both were employed. And having had startups before, I really didn't want to I didn't want to give everything up and run a company just because I thought I had a cool idea. So my whole philosophy was, hey, look, this is something you'll do on the side, I'll do on the side. I had this idea I had a plan that I made for myself, for us, which was 1, 10, 100, 1,000, which is like year 1, we need to be in 1 restaurant, and then 10, and then 100, and then 1,000. Yeah. And, we actually pulled that off. I don't know how, but we did.
No way.
And, yeah, COVID helped out. It was almost to the number. We had actually, I think we got to 9.
Josh, when did you start? What was the founding year for Up and Go?
So, well, I typically go by the year that we incorporated Up and Go Inc., which was, so technically our birthday would be October 6, 2016. So we're going to be 10 soon. Wow. But it wasn't, not much was happening then. We just sort of said, okay, we're going to do it. And I remember it was like, whatever it is to incorporate a company, like $300. And I was like, do I want a new pair of shoes or should I start a company? Right. I don't know, the shoes, like immediate gratification, do I really want to put this $300 on the line? And so, but then I really waited till the last minute. And I think there was like someone we had to sign an agreement with or something, or I wanted to open a bank account. And I was like, oh, okay, got to spend the $300.
I need this prereq to take in the money. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was really trying to do it that way, and all the way up to what's really funny is like in 2018, I think it was 2018, I just got introduced to this lady, Anna. She's awesome, and she was a reseller, or she was in sales for a local Aloha reseller, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool to hire her. And I was mentioning it to a friend of mine, and I guess I didn't realize that he was rich. And he's like, I'll give you the salary. And I was like, cool. And so we actually had an employee while I
Is
worked
it?
at
Oh, yeah,
another
that's
job.
how it. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then it was like at the end, she's like, oh, I have to move or whatever. And then I was like, well, I guess I'll be the employee then, And that's when I was like, I'll take the paycheck. And my first paycheck was January of 2020, which was a great time to start a business. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember like there was this RSPA conference in the Bahamas, and I was like, oh, cool, I'm gonna go do that. And I was getting on a plane, and someone was like, hey, I heard there's some kind of flu in China. And I'm like, I don't know, I feel fine. And we just like got on the plane, and yeah, anyway, everybody knows what happened there. But yeah, so the pandemic was really an opener for us, and it got a lot of people to want contactless payments.
Yeah.
And then it was just this flood. It was like everybody that I had been doing outreach to that was ignoring me, all these restaurants, all of a sudden they were calling me back, emailing me.
Inbounds, amazing.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was really crazy for a while there. Like, I would be like searching through my email at 3 a.m. and see that some brand had signed, an agreement for 20 locations, and I didn't even notice it all day. I would send out agreements and get them back the same day.
It's the dream. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now it's like a lot slower.
Just want to make sure you got my email. Just checking in again to see if you got the contract.
Just checking in. Yeah. So yeah, and then we just started. Our first hire, David Warren. I remember, I just found him online and I interviewed him, and then I was like, oh, by the way, do you think you could start like right now, like literally right now? Can you just start working? And he's like, sure. And he's still here.
Like, yeah, why? Oh, no way. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll tell you one thing, like people don't want to quit Up and Go. We're really, I just think it's, people are so important, and
Agreed. I think once it's in your veins too, once you build like even, like a speck of the company and it turns into something more, and then you can see your contributions happening. Startup land is addicting in that way, especially if you're like, a bit of a progress junkie. It's fun to put in that output and be like, oh my God, we just got a customer from this and that feature did this, and it's out in the world, and that's gratifying. And if no one's left, it's another nod to you. That's hard to maintain at scale as you grow.
yeah. So yeah, I would say that's how we did it. It was just very incremental, and not going the VC route. And we're in an interesting situation because on one hand we have a product, but on the other hand we're also kind of like a service, almost consulting, because we really hold the hands of our clients through everything, the setup and all of that. And sometimes that's not scalable. Sometimes we charge a setup fee and end up spending 10 times more in terms of like the cost of labor to do it. And that's fine. That's the kind of business we want to provide. Ironically, don't tell investors, but it pays off in the long run. We want to make sure it works well for everybody, and so.
Yeah, definitely. I'd imagine like it's hairy too, dealing with the point of sale platforms and the different ways you need to work with them, the customer. It's guest facing what you have too, so like even that component's so critical. That's a lot of spinning plates.
Yeah, well, point of sale systems, the core ones that were invented have been around for the past 30 years or so. They had no idea when they created them that the web was going to exist, right? Like there was never any foresight to like people paying at the table. And so you're really trying to get a square peg in a round hole, and that's why I say it's much more complicated than meets the eye, because there's just so many edge cases of the combinations of this perfect storm or that perfect storm, and you've got to write software to handle it. I was using another pay at table. Even if I see my competitor's product, I use it. I need to. So I was using it with a friend, and I was like, okay, we're gonna split the check with this thing, okay? And I go, I'm gonna pay for half, and you pay for half. So what happens is my payment goes through first, so I pay for half. Then he pays for a quarter. So now a quarter of the check is unpaid. Moreover, we keep trying to scan this QR code again, and we can't even load the rest of the check to pay it off. And so that just goes to show you that, how complicated this stuff is, That's
Wow.
not us.
It's
That's not us.
actual
That's the
like
competitor.
25 cents or a quarter of the whole bill.
No, a quarter of the bill, right? Because I said basically what happened is I said I want to pay half,
Yeah.
and then my friend said I want to pay half, but it hit their system in sequence, right? So half of half, it's like never gonna it would keep being then an eighth and a 16th and a
Yeah.
32nd, like it was never gonna pay the check. But that's the kind of thing we did. We built like this whole system that runs on top of a POS that monitors how many people are trying to, we have this thing we call it. I wanted to call it the penny pincher, but they call it something else on the dev team, where we literally track the quantity of cents on a check, and people have to check out the pennies to be paying them. But then we also are monitoring how the balance due on the check could be going, let's say, up by people ordering more, or down by payments hitting the POS, or discounts hitting the POS, whatever. It's this moving target, and the split check itself is like, even far more complicated than just simply paying at the table. And so I think you just don't see that complexity on day one. And there's so many times we're like, oh my God, we're going to spend, months to build this subsystem, but we had to do it. We're just like, okay, yeah, we're committed to this. And that's when you stay when you're lane and you're not trying to have 5 different products, then it makes it sensible to operate that way.
Sounds like a major problem if there are payment platforms out there that like don't require you to pay for 25% of the bill. Like no one knows.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know what they did. The owner of that restaurant happened to be there, and he was like, yeah, we call people.
It's like, we eat this loss. Yeah, we eat this loss. Yeah.
They go into their open table and find the phone number.
That's crazy.
He's like,
That would
that's
make me
really not
nuts.
fun as a restaurant operator. You
But
don't want to be like
that sounds like
calling
that's-
someone and saying, yeah, you're. So,
I think it skipped out a little bit. Yeah.
oh yeah. Well, I think we'll be okay. Yeah, well, we've covered a lot of ground here. Where do you think? I mean, I think we just probably have a few minutes left. So, where do you see? Actually, there was one question I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
because I know you have 2 categories of feedback. You sort of have this high level, and then I know you've done a lot of work in the menu item feedback.
Yeah.
What would you say, like in general, the restaurant operators, like which one of those are they paying more attention to? Like, is the item feedback, did that turn out to be, do they really make a lot of changes based on that, or are they paying more attention to the overall picture? I'm curious how basically the feedback on those 2 categories compare to each other for restaurants.
It's an amazing question. They are so intertwined, marketing and operations. So we provide many of our brands basically objectives or insights on the basis of their role, like what they can actually affect in terms of change. So the general manager is likely not focusing on fixing the menu item unless there are certain missteps from food prep or storage or the temperature and the duration of which it's cooking at. But for the most part, if from an aggregate level, when you look at all the menu item level feedback over the course of like a month or 2 months or 3 months, you end up seeing patterns just in terms of, we call it menu affinity. It's basically a scatter plot that we use to understand the top performing menu items on a menu item level. And then on like the y-axis, we would see, does that menu item also deliver high overall guest satisfaction? So anything in like the top right quadrant would be like the magnify quadrant, the M within the acronym. And then anything in like the bottom left is like low menu item satisfaction and low overall score. That'd be like the edit eliminate quadrant. So at that point, you look at the edit eliminate quadrant and you say, okay, people don't like the fajitas. Do they not like the fajitas because they don't taste well, the team isn't cooking them correctly, it's poor storage or prep? Or are we working with the wrong food supplier on our fajitas? Is like the meat just simply not good or too chewy or tough? Or perhaps are we telling the ops team the wrong things in the ways to cook it? So it's so intricate, and it's really difficult in many cases to say, oh, this is on ops or this is on marketing. So it's like the general manager can control the operational categories and execution really well. When that extends into menu items, you do have to take like a zoomed out view. Like, are these issues being caused by missteps in execution, or have we made the wrong choice on the marketing side? in terms of selecting the item and maybe tasking the op teams with like with an unattainable task of saying, yeah, the build step complexity is impossible. Like no one's going to make this right. But yeah, and like the incubation period of like spinning this up and eating it, like it was great when we tested this, for food test. So it's really tough to pull the two apart, but they are intertwined. And the best way to do it is by collecting aggregate data, finding the ones that underperform, and then saying, is it more marketing, is it more ops, or is it both? And then testing again and again. It never ends, the testing, as we know.
Well, that's something I didn't know, that the menu item feedback has the marketing department as their audience, whereas the more general feedback doesn't really feed into marketing. In a sense.
Yes, I think marketing now, over the last, I would even say 6 months to a year, are becoming more and more concerned with their leaky bucket. So for them, they typically have a return on ad spend goal, and that could be like, 7-to-1, which means that like if they want to really drive revenue, they have to keep guests coming back again and again. So they can do whatever they want, sing whatever song to bring them in, but if they don't deliver on the outside, they're going to lose guests, which means that the return on ad spend will drop precipitously, and then there goes the marketing budget or like the brand in time. So yeah, marketing cares deeply about creating conditions that make their marketing dollars go farther. What they typically are marketing the most are menu items. So it's great to spin up a menu item or an LTO and bring people in, but if you're putting ops in an impossible position of figuring out the 12-step build on the new like chicken, bacon, beef, whatever sandwich, then like, yeah, people will definitely come in droves to eat it, but like, are you bringing them back? So there's always like a certain balance between the two, just to make sure that, some of the top KPIs of marketers are being met. And yeah, putting people in the right spots is like half the battle. You kind of win that way.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm still learning. We're always hopefully you learn till the day you die. I'm still learning a little bit on who cares about what, along the organization, and I guess it can vary a little bit from restaurant to restaurant.
That's the toughest part too. They all operate a bit differently. So the art again is like we spoke about at the get-go, just being around for 7+ years to learn all the tricks of the trade, no doubt.
That's true. All right, cool. Well, as we come up to the end of our time, what's the future of Tattle? Like, what do you have in store?
Oh man, I think it's an exciting time to be alive right now in SaaS. And the SaaS apocalypse has occurred. We're all still here. And I think more or less the next phase of Tattle is building the next layers of, operations. So for us, we think of this more as every feedback company is a system of record. You can collect feedback. You can assign a satisfaction score to every location. You can know the drivers of that, whether it's like food quality or accuracy or speed or all those things. So that's like has become the baseline. Like you need that just to play the game in feedback. The next phases are, great, now that we have the data, what are we going to do to build out the operational layer? What do we tell people in terms of what they need to do? And then the layer after that is, how do we hold the team accountable? And then you can kind of see it happening, but the more and more you get into system of record, actionability, accountability, you're getting more and more, into the physical world. I don't know if you've seen I think more recently, it's a company called, I think it's like Flippy or Miso, and they flip the burgers and they can make coffee and things like that. And they literally do all the steps that a person would do. So I don't know, at some important time we have to give human sort of directions on the action items to fix the coffee or the burger or the fries, and then also funnel all that data into the robot who's flipping the burger to be like, hey, listen, robot, like we just got a ton of bad feedback on the burger. It's raw, like you're not cooking it long enough. And I think you're like misplacing some of the pickles. They seem to be on the top of the burger or the bottom, and it's like getting slippery for the guests. So like, can you just flip that around? And if you were to upload the new SOPs for the burger into Tattle, and we could funnel that data into the robot, and then also provide directions for the person, we're moving closer and closer into the physical world to really affect change. So I think the really exciting part will be the loop of all of it. How does all that data get collected and then get dispersed and then made sure that it's executed at scale? That'll be like the fun part, I think, in feedback.
Yeah, I think once employees are all robots, it'll be easier to keep them in line.
You like hate that because you don't even think about that when we're building. And then I saw the article the other day. I'm like, oh my God, like they're flipping burgers now. I'm like, when did this happen? But the true hope is, how do you make this so easy for the people that put all their time and energy into building a great guest experience? And then if we are finding robots in the restaurant, how do they need to see these directions? Is it like we sending ones and zeros into the robot to figure it out? Or, so that's, I think, going to be the interesting process, and how are we translating all the data for anyone to action, whoever is back there in the kitchen, basically.
Well, I think that was the perfect answer, Alex. I asked you about the future, and you said robots. And I think you're right.
I should have just said robots.
Robots, yeah.
Yeah, you'd be like, I understand. Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I mean, we have a client that owns a bunch of hotels, and he's telling me that he has robots in there that do all the room service. And
what in the world? Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I do think 5 or 10 years from now, they'll just be robots. There'll be a robot right here vacuuming, and there'll be one there delivering some mail. I was in LA and I saw these little cars, these little robots parked waiting to deliver food.
Yep.
I do. I think that's the next big revolution. It's just these robots will be everywhere, and they'll have little faces, and it'll be like Star Wars, and you'll talk to them. And I'm glad that if nothing happens, knock on wood, I'll see all the robots, and I think that'll be fun.
I agree. I think it'll all happen faster than probably we think too. So I feel like we need to get our popcorn for like the next few years and just see it all play out.
Alex, the robot's going to bring us the popcorn.
You're right. Let me rephrase. We will be brought popcorn.
We will, yeah. And then I'll rate the robot on Tattle. So.
Oh my God. It won't end. The loop will not end.
The loop will not end. All right. Well, thanks so much, Alex. It was it was fun talking to you, and I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
We will. I can't wait. Thanks so much for having me on.
You're welcome.